Senior Moments, sponsored by the Empowering Seniors Group on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Senior Moment Show. My name is Bryce Patton, here with the fabulous Sid Roeder. How are you, Sid?
Wow, you've changed it to fabulous. I love it.
Yeah, it's a good day today. I just feel good. I actually slept really well last night, so I'm feeling pretty dang good.
Good.
Yeah.
And we have a fun show coming.
We do. Before we get to our guest, you want to tell us all about our sponsor? And
as always, I'm delighted.
Thank goodness.
Our sponsor is the Empowering Seniors Group, which is a group of professionals that has dedicated their time and effort to provide information to seniors, their family members, caretakers, and really all of those wonderful people that love to listen to us on an early Saturday morning. If you'd like to learn more about the Empowering Seniors Group, you can do so online at empoweringseniors.info, or you can email us at empoweringseniorscv@gmail.com, and the CV stands for Cache Valley. And lastly, if you have any suggestions for the show, anyone you would like to see us invite, you can reach me personally at 435-512-6406.
Oh, thank you for doing that. I'm so glad you're delighted to always do it. So we have a wonderful guest with us. It's a first timer on the show. We have Justin Wall from Wall Estate Solutions. Welcome to the show, Justin.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Hey, so since this is your first time, you want to tell our listeners a little bit about you, how you became a estate planner? And
Sure. That's been a little while ago now. I think I was introduced to estate planning in law school. Most people as students don't really get into wills and trusts much and are not very involved with that. But I really just enjoyed, getting to learn the law and learn how to apply the different types of estates and the different sizes of estates. Mostly that all happened in law school. And, after law school, I did a little bit of work in litigation, spent some time doing personal injury, workers' compensation, kind of to get my feet wet a little bit before I decided to just take the jump and do some, change gears, really. I went into an estate planning law firm out of Phoenix, Arizona, one of the leading ones out there, where I worked for several years. Until our family just got big enough that we decided it was time to move and come closer to family. My wife's family is from this area, and so we decided we'd make the move and take the leap, and here we are, getting ready to do some estate planning here in the Cache Valley area.
Well, that's fantastic.
That's fabulous. Yeah. Let's maybe as our listeners know, I do real estate. So I encounter lots of situations where estate planning has a big effect. So maybe we can dive into a little bit and talk about some of the pitfalls, some of the misconceptions about will versus trust, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things people don't realize, well, two things really. The first one I think is a will. Everyone talks about getting a will, but they don't realize that a will by itself is not going to keep your estate out of probate. In fact, when I first started and I was doing a lot of probate cases, I would have people that came to me all the time and said, Mom and Dad have everything set up. What do we do? And, I'd ask for the documents and all they had was a will in place, right? And when they present with that, my next step is I have to take that will into probate just to get it validated before we can even do anything with it. And now we've opened a probate proceeding. We have to go through the whole court system that people generally try to avoid when they're trying to do their estate planning. So that's the number one thing, is a will by itself is not a probate avoidance device. A trust is. Okay, and the reason for that is what we're doing with the trust is actually a little bit different. All we're doing with the will is we're saying, when I die, these are the people that will take over my assets. These are the beneficiaries, the heirs of my estate, and that's going to supersede the default state law. With the trust, we're actually changing title. So what the problem that we don't have to deal with, that we don't have to go to probate for, is who's the owner, right? If you're the owner of the property, then when you pass away, probate's the process of transferring that into the title of somebody that can sign that deed. When we set up a trust, we're actually transferring title now out of your name and into the name of the trust, so that when you pass away, the title on the trust passes to a successor trustee, and now that successor trustee can transfer that asset to the next beneficiaries. Okay, so the key with that in real estate, I think what you brought up, is you must transfer your deed into your trust as part of the estate planning process. And once that deed is transferred, you can still sell it, you can still mortgage it, you can still do anything else you would have been able to do with it in a revocable trust. But now when you pass away, those assets can transfer without having to bring it to the probate courts to ask a judge for permission to transfer the deed.
So one other question I have there, Justin, is do you also, when you sit down with clients, do you advise them how to decide on who to put in as the trustee, or how does that work?
Yeah, so there's usually a conversation about who makes sense to be the trustee. And in a lot of cases, it's one of the kids. It's maybe the oldest child, or maybe they have a child who's a CPA or an attorney or somebody that has some experience that would make a good fit for that role. In other cases, we might have some special considerations. If you have a child with a substance abuse disorder, for example, and it might make sense initially for somebody to say, well, I want this child to take care of the share for that other child. Well, then there's some considerations with that. Does that child who's taking care of it, do they want to be in that role, whether the decision maker, whether they get those assets, or how much of those assets they end up getting? Or do we want to put them in a position where they can just be a sibling, right, and be there for that child? That's the situation that comes up quite a bit. If you have a child with a disability, that's another example. There are some special regulations for how we want that asset to go to that child, usually in a supplemental needs trust. And the way that the trustee acts and the way that the trustee follows those rules is going to determine the effectiveness of that plan. So in some cases, we're advising, is this person a good trustee for that beneficiary, or do we need to find a professional to handle this, or is there some other arrangement we need to make?
So with the real estate and everything else, is if you have let's say for your home or something like that, and it's not quite paid off, can you go ahead and put that in a trust anyways and get it all squared away at that point?
Yeah, absolutely. So I get that question quite a bit. Just about everybody that I talk to has a home, and many of those homes have mortgages on them that haven't been paid off. So transferring title out of your name and into the name of a trust should not affect the rights of the mortgage company, right? So the law says that the mortgage company cannot accelerate that loan. They're not allowed to make any changes to your mortgage agreement or charge you any extra or change the rates based on the fact that you've transferred it into a revocable trust. Now, there are certain other types of trusts where that's going to change. Those aren't as common. And if the mortgage company asks, we'll usually just tell them what kind of a trust it is, and we can give them some documentation as needed. But for the most part, it's not going to cause a problem to transfer a house with a mortgage into a trust.
So really quick, Justin, before we head into our first break, what do you advise if there is a mortgage on it? With a trust, obviously, there's not much of a delay, but how people deal with the accounts so the mortgage keeps on getting paid?
And you're talking about primarily after the owner has passed away, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So this comes up in both probate cases and in trust cases. And the issue that we're looking at is, well, how do we pay the bills, right? How do we keep up on the mortgage, and how do we make that happen? And I think the best answer I can give is we need to get on top of that as soon as we can. And that's for a trust or that's for a probate. We need to make sure that the person who is named as the personal representative or the trustee can get on top of that and take care of those mortgage payments as soon as possible. Payments can be made out of pocket and reimbursed, or we can sell the home as quickly as we can. But oftentimes it's just contacting the mortgage company and seeing if they're willing to work with us.
For sure. Thank you so much. We're coming up on our first break, and obviously when we come back, we're going to ask for some contact information for any of our listeners that are maybe thinking about getting a trust set up for their belongings. This is the Senior Moment Show. Again, we are sponsored by the Empowering Seniors Group. If you'd like to learn more about the Empowering Seniors, you can do so online at empoweringseniors.info, or you can email us at empoweringseniors.cv@gmail.com, and the CV stands for Cache Valley. We're going to take a short break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Tyler. Recently, my father passed away, and White Pine provided the funeral services for our family. They were friendly, thoughtful, and attentive to every detail. It isn't often that a loved one passes away, so it was very important to my family that everything be handled just right. Because my dad was loved by so many people, we had a lot of family and friends that traveled from out of town. I really appreciate how White Pine Funeral Services made sure everyone was comfortable and that the focus was where it needed to be, on my dad and my family. They really took care of us during this tender time.
White Pine Funeral Services, here when you need us most.
Did you know 1 in 3 people will visit a nursing home? Did you know that once there, they will stay there for an average of 3 years? Did you also know there are insurance options that can help cover this experience? Hi, I'm Tracy Ferris with Blue Water Health Insurance. It's not cheap to stay in a full-fledged nursing home. Long-term care insurance can help you or a loved one get the care they need and deserve. If you wait until you need it, you may be too late. Give me a call at 435-890-8155.
Getting around your home should be easy and safe. At RT Med Mobile, They provide wheelchairs, stair lifts, ramps, and electric lift chairs to help seniors maintain independence and comfort. Their friendly team offers free in-home consultations to find the perfect solution for you or your loved one. Locally owned and here to help, call 435-260-6171 today. RT Med Mobile, because your mobility matters.
You have a lot of options when it comes to buying or selling a home. Do you list it online, sell it yourself, or do you have a realtor help? It's a major financial and emotional decision. A realtor is the liaison between buyers and sellers and really helps you navigate complex contracts, deadlines, and disclosures.
Hi, this is Sid Roeder with Achievement Realty. I work for you to get the best outcome for your situation. Let me earn your trust with a free consultation and a free market analysis. Call me today at 512-6406. Then list it, sell it, and move on.
Are you tired of feeling unwell and not knowing why? At Next Level Health and Wellness, we hear you. We specialize in uncovering the root causes of your discomfort, whether it's gut health, hormone imbalances, or emotional and mental blocks. With personalized plans, advanced lab testing, and evidence-based holistic nutrition practices, we guide you toward lasting health and wholeness. Awaken your healing potential with a team that listens, understands, and supports you wherever you are. Visit nextlevelhw.com to start your journey to feeling better today.
And welcome back to the Senior Moment Show. My name is Bryce Patton here with Sid Roeder, and we've been talking with Justin Wall from Wall Estate Solutions about all things trust related and estate planning. You were talking about a bunch of real estate things earlier, and if people have questions or want to get a hold of you to maybe you've triggered, hey, I want to start planning this or I need to get on top of this, where's a good place to reach you?
Yeah, the best place is probably just my phone number. Give my office a call. The number is 435-294-0346. That's 435-294-0346 right here in Logan.
Okay. So now my question is, I feel like I'm still pretty young. Is there a time where you're just too young to start, or is it too early to plan, or is there a too late to plan?
Yes to all of those. I would say this doesn't come up very often, but too early to plan. I had one person that came into my office a few years ago who was a single college kid with no children, no house, no assets, right? I think at that stage of life, planning with the trust may not be the best choice because there's not a whole lot to administer. There's not a whole lot of options there, and there's not a whole lot that needs to happen even if you passed away without it. I think it would still be helpful to have a will. I wouldn't say it's as critical as it would be after you buy a home or after you start having children or after you get married, when we need to start organizing what happens. The real issue here is we don't know if and when something will happen to you at a younger age. So on the early side, I would say once you buy a home or once you have children, that's probably the best time to get started. A little earlier than most people expect, but yes, I think there's a shorter end where it's not really necessary. Your follow-up question on that was, is there a time when it's too late? And that's a great question. Honestly, the time that it's too late is after something happens to you, whether you've passed away, whether you've become incapacitated. And the truth is we never know when that's going to happen. In fact, I had a client of mine in Arizona before we moved here. Probate case, mom, dad, 3 kids. The kids were in college. Mom and dad both knew that they needed to get an estate plan. I think a lot of people around that age do. But they figured, you know what, we'll just do it later. We'll do it another time. It's not critical right now. We're both in pretty good health. And a lot of people follow that same thought. Well, mom passed away unexpectedly. Obviously, that was devastating for the family. They didn't have an estate plan in place. Luckily for them, the community property estate, everything transferred to dad without having to go through probate. So that was fine. Dad remarried, and then within 9 months of that remarriage, dad passed away unexpectedly as well. Okay, so now we've got this new spouse, and the probate statutes will say that the spouse has priority over the children to be in charge of running the estate, and they also get a share of the estate based on which state you're in and what the rules are that we're working on. Well, in this case, they had a home, they had some retirement assets, they had, household items, personal effects. Mom was living in the home, the new mom was living in the home. She had control over all those assets. She had control of the house. She had the right to refuse entry, those kinds of things. And all of that worked together. We ran the probate, and by the end of it, the kids walked away with a very small share of an estate that was intended to go to them. And the lion's share of the estate was under the control of and went to this person who'd only been in their family for about 9 months. So that can be a pretty disastrous consequence of not getting your estate planning done on time. I would say at that point it is too late, but there was no way to know when too late was going to be. So it's important for I would say any adult that has children or assets like a home or retirement assets needs to have an estate plan to plan what happens if you become incapacitated or after you pass away, so that we're avoiding any kind of disastrous result like that.
And I don't know if this is a fair question to ask at this point in time, but what is kind of the fee range do you want to mention that?
Yeah, so the fee is going to start on the lower end. If we have an estate that doesn't necessarily need a trust, there are plans that we can run for a few $100s for beneficiary deeds and other things if it's a very, very simple situation. Most people are going to need a trust in a revocable trust. We can keep it simple. Those are going to start at about $2,000 or $2,500, and they'll go up from there depending on what you need. Not very many people are going to go over $3,500 or $4,000 unless they have tens of millions of dollars in assets and there's special tax planning, other things we need to do. It's really a case-by-case thing, but my packages are going to be anywhere from $2,500 to $3,500 generally.
So you talked about some of those special circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the special circumstances that you see your clients needing?
Yeah, so some of them are objective and some of them are subjective, right? So the objective ones, I'd say if you have a child with a substance abuse issue, we need to make sure that that's addressed. We need to make sure that if something happens, it's one thing to say we can run a probate and it's going to go in equal shares to the kids anyway. We can handle a probate. It's not the end of the world. But if landing that share to that child is going to be a disastrous result for them, if you have a child with substance abuse disorder and they're going to use those assets in a way that's going to destroy their lives, okay, we want to make sure that that's protected regardless. A child with a disability, and by that I mean somebody that's on SSI, they're receiving government benefits, and those government benefits are based on what they have available to them. They're generally last resort benefits. And usually that means if they receive an inheritance, they're going to be disqualified from those benefits until those benefits are spent down or they're used up, and then they can come back and reapply. And as anyone who's on disability knows, that process can take a very long time. It can be very costly. The legal fees for just an application can be upwards of $6,000 or $7,000, which is much more than I would spend for to set up that kind of a trust and get it taken care of. Another one is I get a lot of people that come in that have a child, everything's hunky-dory, but they're married to this guy or they're married to this gal, and they're worried that this person's gonna take over and manage those trust assets, and so it's not really gonna end up in the hands of their child. And that can be an issue if they have spending problems, or if there's an issue that they're worried about a divorce, or if they just want to make sure that their children have control of those assets. Those are the kinds of scenarios that we want to make sure that we have a trust in place for.
Wow, that sounds very intriguing and difficult, to be quite honest. I'm kind of wondering what some of those solutions are in a trust, but I think that's going to be too lengthy for our show. Another thing that I wanted to maybe dive a little deeper in before we talked is asset protection. Do you have some examples there?
Yeah. So asset protection. There's a range here. It goes from simple to more complicated. And it depends on what you need, right? When we're talking asset protection, it could be anything from using the statutory exemptions that are available for a smaller estate, all the way up to more advanced, offshore trusts and that kind of planning for the ultra rich and the wealthy. For most people, we have a package that works it's designed for a regular family with a home, some retirement accounts, regular income. What we do is we say, we're going to take your trust assets and we're going to divide them to your beneficiaries, often the children in equal shares. But rather than giving them a share outright, where it now becomes their property in their name, where it would be subject to their creditors if they go through a divorce or a bankruptcy or a lawsuit. Well, now we can take that and put it into what we call a subtrust. And that subtrust was not created by them. It was not funded with their assets. So there are extra rules we can use to say you're restricted. You can only use it for certain purposes, and we can open that up fairly broadly, and then also say you're not allowed to use it for the benefit of your creditors. So now if they ever go through a divorce or a bankruptcy or a lawsuit, those assets that they've received from you will be protected potentially for the rest of their lives, and even down to the grandkids if we want to set it up that way.
Wonderful. Thank you, Justin. This is the Senior Moment Show. We are coming up on our second break. So if you want to stay tuned, we'll be right back.
At Maple Springs Senior Living in North Logan, we understand that entrusting the care of your loved one to someone else is a decision not taken lightly. That's why we go above and beyond to create a nurturing environment where your family becomes our family.
When I found Maple Springs, it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. The staff here really cares, and Mom is thriving.
The activities and social events have brought so much joy to Dad's life. I can see a positive change every time I visit.
We know that your loved one's well-being is your top priority, and it's ours too. Learn more at maplesprings.living.com.
I think Mom needs a little more help.
What I really need is a boyfriend who can drive at night.
Hi, this is Bruce with Comfort Care. With Comfort Care at your side, you can live your best life possible. We know families can't be there 24/7, which is why we can help with as little or as much home care as you need, so you can live in your own home on your own terms.
Could you give me a phone number? My daughter was texting.
Together with Comfort Care, you can live your best life possible. Call us today at 754-7676. That's 754-7676.
This is Scott with Cache Valley Pharmacy. Are you struggling to find affordable GLP-1 medications? Cache Valley Pharmacy has you covered. We're now compounding GLP-1s like semaglutide and tirzepatide personally formulated for you, and every batch is tested for quality and sterility. Have your prescriptions transferred today and let Cache Valley Pharmacy help you with your personalized weight loss journey. Cache Valley Pharmacy, keeping it local, online at cachevalleypharmacy.com.
Need a helping hand? The Bear River Association of Governments, also known as BRAG, is here for you.
They assist seniors with in-home services, provide utility bill relief through the HEAT program, and offer rental assistance to keep you housed.
Need help with tax prep? Their experts ensure you get the refund you deserve. And for veterans, they're here to connect you with the benefits you've earned.
BRAG is your local resource for a stronger today and a more secure future. Call today or visit brag.utah.gov.
And welcome back to the Senior Moment Show. My name is Bryce Patton here with Sid Roeder, and we've been talking with Justin Wall from Wall Estate Solutions, all things trust, estate planning, and everything else. And you've given us a ton of information. Some of it's gone over my head, I'm not going to lie. I have many follow-up questions. But if somebody wants to talk to you about planning their estate, can you give us some good contact information?
Yeah, the best way to reach me is by phone. Call me at 435-294-0346. That's 435-294-0346 to call and set an appointment.
Awesome. So you gave that example about the family that kept putting it off and putting it off. It seems to me like maybe they're a little nervous. They were too young, and life's always changing, right? And so I know in my life, if I think about it, I'm like, well, I don't know what's going to happen in 5 years. So if I set up a trust now, how is it going to affect what goes on in the future? So when you set up a trust, like, is it fluid or is it fixed? Like, I put it in and it's stuck.
Yeah. So for most trusts we create, they're going to be revocable trusts. And the difference between revocable and irrevocable is just that. If you have a revocable trust, that gives you flexibility to set it up exactly how you want. As long as you're alive, as long as you have legal mental capacity, then you can make adjustments or changes at any time. And that becomes really useful, especially for younger families. We're planning for the kids. We want to make sure that this person is the trustee who is an adult in case something happens during the younger years. But then most likely you're going to be alive in 20 or 30 or 40 years when your children are adults. And then we're going to want to change that because now Aunt Bessie is not the best trustee. We might want that to be one of the children. That's very common. Sometimes people will move maybe to another state or to another city, or they might make other changes or adjustments as their kids grow and develop and they learn more things about what that estate might look like. So it's very important in most cases to make sure that you have a revocable trust that can be changed. Now, that said, there are other types of trusts out there, probably outside the scope of what we're talking about. Just because you have a trust doesn't mean it can be revoked or modified. So if you do need a modification or change to your trust and you're not sure what type it is, that's another reason to call an attorney and just have them double check and see what can be changed and what can be done.
Yeah, and that brings up another question in my mind, because I know that when people get on Medicaid and there is a spend down period, et cetera, and times where they can touch the trust or not. How does that work?
Yeah, good question. So Medicaid is one of a few different strategies that people will use to pay for their long-term care. So big picture, if you end up in a nursing home or an assisted living facility with dementia or Alzheimer's or something like that, you need a way to pay for that, right? And that's what we're boiling this down to. Whether you have a trust with a revocable trust doesn't play much into that in the state of Utah. An asset that's held in a revocable trust is going to count for Medicaid spend down purposes if you need to go on Medicaid, okay? And the reason for that, Medicaid is a program that pays for long-term care if you can prove that you need it, right? And that means they're going to look at how many assets you have available and what assets you can use to spend for that care. Okay, so that's where the spend down comes into play. If you need to get onto Medicaid and you have $20,000 in the bank, well, that's not enough to cover very much long-term care in a nursing home, but it's too much for you to be able to qualify, right? So that's where the spend down comes into play. Now, I guess I'm getting a little off your question. What I do is, as part of this, we're going to help you spend down those assets in a way that's cost effective. And that's going to change from family to family. It depends on your goals and your circumstances. If your goal is to say, well, we want to make sure mom and dad get the best care possible, then the strategy is going to be very different than if we come back and say, well, we're not too concerned about using Medicaid and going to a facility that will work just fine for them, as long as it means we can spend less money and make sure there's more in the estate. Well, there's going to be a different conversation and a different strategy and a different approach for that with how we spend those assets down in order to qualify.
So my question is, you've been talking about all these different things, and it seems like to plan your estate, it seems pretty time consuming. What does it really look like if I were to show up at your door and knock and say, hey, let's start this process? What does that look like?
It's about 2 to 3 weeks generally. So from the first contact, when you come in for that appointment, we're going to talk about your assets. We're going to talk about what you own. We're going to have a second meeting, usually about a week later in most cases, where we're going through the documents that we've drafted for you. So this gives us a little bit of time to put it all together. And then I have one more meeting where we go through that with you to make sure that you're comfortable with it before we ask you to come in for the signing, which is generally 2 weeks after the first appointment. Obviously, that depends on scheduling. So if you're busy and you're out of town, then we're gonna take as much time as we need to. But generally, the standard is about 2 weeks. If you need it faster, if we have that happen occasionally where somebody's in the hospital and we need to get something put together more quickly, we take those on a case-by-case basis, and we can do it more quickly if we have to.
So do you usually give your potential clients like a list of things that they should bring if they have it to make it easier?
Well, generally what my clients need, they'll have with them when they come into that first meeting. What I need to know is, what assets do you own? And that doesn't have to be down to the dollar. It's not that specific, because we know all of this is going to change between now and you pass away anyway. We need to know who's involved. We need to know what's involved. So it's the names of your kids, their dates of birth, just to be able to identify everybody and everything in the estate is generally what we need to get started. If we need more than that, for that first meeting, we'll let you know if there's anything else that we're going to need, and we'll have you bring that in for that second meeting so that we can get it taken care of that way. So it's not even a matter of gathering documents or putting this big portfolio together just to get started with the process.
Thank you, Justin. That was very educational. We are almost at the end of our show, so I don't want to end this without giving you a chance to leave your contact information.
Okay, one more time. Best number to reach me to schedule an appointment is going to be 435-294-0346. My office is in South Logan. That's 435-294-0346. Call to set the appointment.
Thank you so much, Justin, for coming in and enlightening us on trust and wills. This is the Senior Moments Show. Again, we are sponsored by the Empowering Seniors Group. If you'd like to learn more about them, you can do so online at empoweringseniors.info. We hope you tune in again next week.